Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, May 23rd, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian Feast and Marian Meditations. Well, today we have a number of miracles and devotions, as we do every day. They'll take us to Italy, Spain, Italy again, and then, yes, even to the Netherlands. So to get us started, we'll begin with the Abbot Orsini, who tells us that today they celebrate Our Lady of Miracles at St. Omer's, where a glove and some portion of the hair of the Blessed Virgin are preserved. So this refers to Our Lady of Miracles of Brescia, which goes back to 1478, the devotion, right? It's a shrine in northern Italy, in Lombardy, with a painting of the Blessed Virgin on the outside of a house. Now, we're told that during the epidemic of bubonic plague that devastated Brescia in 1478, it became reported that there were many miracles of healing. Right? So the Church of Our Lady of Miracles in Brescia was built to honor the image of the Blessed Virgin, before which so many people were miraculously healed. Construction began in 1488, in thanksgiving for those who survived, but wasn't completed until 1500. The church was struck by Allied bombs during the Second World War, and it was so badly damaged that it had to be completely rebuilt. Right? The facade was preserved, though. It has this beautiful facade, right, made of marble. But it was protected due to the heavy wood planking that the people of Brescia used to cover the facade in order to protect it, right? So on their devotion, they came and sealed it off, right? However, my informant here tells me that I can find no reference to the Blessed Virgin's hair or the glove that were once preserved there. Oh well. Next, we'll jump over to Spain, where they celebrate Virgen de Gracia in Ais, in Puente Viesco, in Pasmiera, in Cantabria, Spain. Okay, so it was, you might have guessed, May 23rd, 1575, as the widow Maria Sáenz de Huijano said the rosary while watching sheep, right? And then she saw Our Lady appear to her, quote, with such great splendor that I didn't dare look at Her Majesty. And she said I should ask the priest of the place to build a chapel in that spot and put in it an image of Our Lady of Grace and one of St. Lawrence. Right? To the woman's objection that the people wouldn't believe her, the Virgin answered that she would make them believe. When the woman started to get up, she found that she couldn't and was staying there, stayed there. So she started calling out for her daughter Juana. Some neighbors passing by found Juana, who carried her mother home on her back. Maria asked Juana to get the local priest. She told him what had happened, and then he told his superior, the vicar of the valley, who dismissed it laughing, saying that the shepherdess must have been dreaming. A few days later, the vicar passed through that place with his servant, who said, Sir, they say that the Virgin recently appeared here to the woman on the spot. And the vicar laughed again, and was suddenly struck blind. The servant led him home. In fear and remorse, the vicar dictated a letter to the archbishop, asking him to order the construction of the chapel so he could regain his sight. Right? So, what did they do? They eventually did build the chapel there. One of the historians says it's not known if the seer and the vicar recovered, but presumably they were among the first to receive graces, right? The chapel's been rebuilt and renovated many times, most recently in 1993. There's an annual procession that draws participants from the entire valley that takes place, you guessed it, on May 23rd. Next, we're going to go back to Italy, where they celebrate Madonna della Pietà, Our Lady of, it's a sorrowful mother, Our Lady of Sorrows, in Croce Cosenza in Calabria, Italy. The Church of the Sorrowful Mother, which is called like the Pietà, is found on the outskirts of this place, right? It seems like in 1611, after the Council of Trent, during the first visit of the bishop of that time to the church, the church was perhaps given to the Dominicans, right? So the story is connected to multiple apparitions. So interestingly enough, one of them took place on May 23rd, 1987, right? When two young boys from this place entered into the small church. And one of them, as soon as he got in, noticed the statue of Our Lady was crying noticeably, right? So then they took off running, this boy, Vincenzo Fulone, with his friend, and went to the bar nearby, where they started recounting what was happening to everyone. So, of course, very soon, the church was surrounded by tons of people, so much so that the Carabinieri, the police, had to intervene, controlling access to the ancient church, right? Which is funny because at that time the church wasn't even in use, right? It had been erected as an ex votive offering for some Greek merchants who had survived a terrible shipwreck. So 1 month before this event, so the church was there and also had a cemetery. So some months before this event, the commune government, so like the city council, demolished the cemetery and was actually planning the destruction of the church as well, right? So around 6:30 that same day, the young Vincenzo Fulone, who had run the church, heard a voice that spoke to him in dialect, "Do not be afraid. I am your mother. I am the Virgin of Peace and of Miracles. Pray, because the world has much need of peace. Tomorrow, at the same time, I want you here. Give the warnings to humanity are not finished." So, in the meantime, elsewhere, a young girl by the name of Anna Biasi said that she had dreamed of the Virgin, Our Lady, and that she had been given an appointment for the 26th of May at the same church. Okay, interesting. So both of these young people found themselves in the church on the 26th, right? Because they knew that they had to go there. And it was interesting because the 26th was the day established for the demolition of the church. So together, the two young people went to the statue of Our Lady. They knelt before it, and they saw the statue come to life. The beautiful woman. So the woman requested water from them, right? So they went to a little fountain that was nearby, which at the time had just become like a little trough for animals, but there was barely any water that was coming out of it. But as soon as Vincenzo put his hands under the fountain, which was stuck with gunk, the water began to flow out with great force and abundance, right? So it's very interesting there. So the apparitions of Our Lady ceased in 1992. When they would return, they would recur on the 30th anniversary of that event. So that would be 2022. So 2022. When Our Lady appeared to solo Anna Biasi, but many, it says, were witnesses of that miraculous event. Last but not least, then, we go to Onze Lieve Vrouwe der Noodgoeds, Bergacharin in Wherein, Gelderland, Netherlands. It's Our Lady of God's Passion. The chapel was consecrated in 1948 on the site of a chapel from the 1300s, which was destroyed in the late 1600s. So the sanctuary of Onze Lieve Vrouwe der Nood in Heilo is the largest Marian shrine place of pilgrimage in the Netherlands. Again, like we said, the shrine dates back to the end of the 14th century, when a farmer found a statue of Mary on his land. He got it home, but it returned to the place of its finding miraculously. Around the same time, a ship got into trouble at sea off the coast of Heilo, and in his need, the captain prayed. Over the roaring sea and the raging winds, he heard a clear woman's voice said, "If you honor me, the winds will change." So the captain recognized the voice of Mary, the Mother of God, had promised to devote himself to her worship, to her praise. Once the ship landed safely, the two stories came together, and so the Chapel of Mercy was built. In the beginning, like in the opening, in the forecourt, it says, like in the entrance area of the Chapel of Mercy, is the Marian source with wholesome water, right, with which many miracles have happened. Of course, during the Reformation in 1573, the chapel was destroyed, and the source filled up with debris from the chapel, right? However, in 1713, during the cattle plague, the water at the source welled up forcefully from under the rubble. History has it that the animals that drank from the water survived the cattle plague. So that is what we are celebrating today, May 23rd, in the Marian world. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we read the concluding meditation, point 4, of Mary and Pentecost, that is, Mary and the descent of the Holy Spirit. This is meditation 73. And here the point is, the Holy Spirit within us. Do not forget that at baptism, you also received the Holy Spirit.
It was he who made you a child of God. You received him in confirmation when he strengthened you in your faith and took you under his protection. By means of sanctifying grace, you constantly receive him in all the sacraments through the effusion of the divine life. Do not forget that the Holy Spirit dwells in souls as in his living temple, and therefore you have him close in your very heart. It is he who sustains you, helps and enlightens you, and leads you along the way of sanctity. Thank him for his inexhaustible love, which never tires of you or of your ingratitude. Promise that you will correspond better to his divine gifts, that you will labor with more effort and will cooperate with more interest with the work of grace. Entrust this task to our Heavenly Mother, that she may prepare your heart as she did with the hearts of the apostles. She will render fruitful and abiding the coming of the Holy Spirit into your soul. For today's reading from the Admirable Heart of Mary by St. John Eudes, we continue with Chapter 9, entitled Heart of Mary, Sanctuary, Censer, and Altar of Divine Love. This adorable sanctuary comprises several features that we shall now have to consider. The first is its perpetual sacrifice, ceaselessly offered to God, a sacrifice of love and praise. Mary offered the sacrifice of love, for during her pilgrimage on earth, and still much more since her assumption into heaven, her virginal heart constantly made a perpetual exercise and sacrifice of love towards God, a love never surpassed except by the love of the deified heart of Jesus. She also offered the sacrifice of praise, for her heart is a perpetual host of praise and adoration, of glorification, of thanksgiving to the most holy Trinity, which is more worthily praised, more perfectly adored, and more highly glorified by Our Lady than by all angels and angelic minds and hearts in heaven and on earth.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.